All right, welcome back to the dive, everybody. How's it going? We've got the most special guest that we've ever had here today, and we're live from Austin, Texas. You probably know who it is. It's the one, the only American legend, icon, Alex Jones. He, people in the media, they hate him. They say he's crazy, but it's really the things that Alex says are only crazy in a world full of lies, in a world that's controlled by the banksters, the financial elite, these major energy conglomerates, big pharma, so on and so forth. So if you don't know Alex, you've probably been living under a rock, but I encourage you to listen to what he has to say because he's gotten virtually every single major issue correct. Before, when I was walking in diapers, he was getting this stuff correct. So, 9/11 onward, everything, even before. So, Alex, it's great to join you here today. Thank you so much for doing this.
Well, I'm a big fan of your work. Really support the great work you're doing, reaching out to people, waking them up. I better live up to this great introduction.
Well, I got a few little gifts here as we start. This is from my favorite cigar shop in Miami.
Oh, I love cigars. Thank you.
Some Nicaraguan cigars, and then I also got some gifts for you. This is from Stalin's bunker in Moscow. It's a commemorative gold coin of the first nuke that they produced in the Soviet Union. And then this
looks like a perfect copy of Fat Man.
Yes, it does. I think that's what they were shooting for.
Well, yeah, they had agents inside. That's what it is. Then.
And then this is from the first National Congress of the the Communist Party of China, and that I got in Shanghai, which is also very interesting.
So you're a big fan of Communist China?
I think that they do a lot of stuff right.
Well, I think you get people thinking is very positive. I don't know that I'm sold on the CCP and Stalin, but I will say our elites are even more sophisticated and in charge right now, more dangerous. So, but I definitely think that it's all open for debate. So thank you for these gifts. Never thought I would have a Stalin atomic bomb commemorative, but I've got it now. Thank you, along with the cigars.
That's actually an interesting point to start on. With regard to China and Russia and the United States, you look at these major three powers in the multipolar world that's developing. There's a lot to be said about each country, but how do you think America can integrate into this multipolar world as we move out of the empire, the unipolar era, in a way that's going to be non-antagonistic with the rest of the world?
Well, I think it's important to begin how this started. If you look at 1952 or so, the United States was 4% of the world population. So 96% of the world did not live inside the United States. Now that doesn't just mean colonists, but Alaska and Hawaii as well. So less than 5% of the world's population lived inside the United States, a little over 4%. And we had half the world's wealth. And it wasn't because we stole the wealth. We generated most of the patents, most of the innovation, most of the ideas. And so the British Empire was challenged by that. By the 20s, they set up the CFR, Pratt House, to try to have what Churchill wrote about in his 3-volume set, The History of the English-Speaking Peoples, a plan to merge the United States with the British Empire. And that's why Putin rightfully calls it the Anglo-American establishment. It doesn't mean white people, but that's what the British Empire was really called, was the Anglo-American Empire. That was a certain tribe of the Vikings that 1,000 years before William the Conqueror took over Europe and then took over England. So when Putin calls them out, he's calling them out by their actual name, the Anglo-American establishment. And then over the next 60, 70, 80 years now, they parlayed all that global power that America had into global domination. And basically in the name of becoming evil to challenge evil, because that's what they always say when they try to get me to sell out several times. They say, well, we're not really evil, but we have to fill all those spaces up and control all those rackets because then somebody else will control it. So that's why we've got to be more evil than the evil. It's a Machiavellian tactic. So if America operated off what made it great, what made people want to come here, free market, open society where people from Italy or Japan or anywhere else could come here who were born into caste systems, were born in kind of neo-feudalist systems who couldn't find an upward trajectory, they could come here and really get ahead off of their own sweat of their brow, their own intelligence, their own hard work. But as we know, any empire that becomes incredibly powerful then gets corrupt, it goes into decline, and then tries to suppress the population, then collapses. So I think if we had a scale of 1 to 100, 100 being the beginning of the American, or 0 being the beginning of the American empire, and 100 being the complete collapse and end of it. I think we're at about 85 right now. And, empires never last more than 250 years, one of the oldest in the world. But because of the acceleration of technology and culture, I don't think it'll take another 100 years or so, like the Roman Empire first collapsed. I think we're going to see the collapse in the next 5 to 10 years.
Wow.
And the death throes of that are going to be very, very dangerous. So it's not that I endorse some of the other predatory governments and systems in the world. It's that this predatory government system is the most dominant. It has the most weapons. It's the most arrogant, filled with hubris and chutzpah, and is really trying to dominate domestically and internationally, not out of strength, but out of weakness. So we're in a very, very dangerous paradox right now where we need not a bipolar world, not a multipolar world, but we need a panopticon polar where we honor all cultures and the people who control their governments. They can come together in global congresses to make decisions, but it's transparent, and nations, depending on population and GDP, then have a vote in that larger system. So I'm not against the international system. Actually, we need that. I'm against the international system run by BlackRock and a few private central banks that have a true enmity against humanity and against independence because it threatens their monopolistic system. So if you've got global systems out there, you've got the United States, British Empire, Anglo-American establishment, you have the Communist Chinese CCPs, the second dominance group. You kind of have the EU that kind of works in between and plays both sides. But really the biggest block that no one talks about is the human populist movement. And so I want to move even beyond a multipolar world to a world where things are really revealed, where things are transparent, and where the actions of humans and independence and competition brings forward the world we're going to collectively build. Because I don't believe in collectivism directed by an elite, but I do believe in a collectivism once the public has access to the market and to the culture and society off of our actions creates a almost singularity of collectivism, which actually empowers the individual instead of the opposite. And so you won't really get my views in most of the textbooks or political systems, but I've studied them all. But that's kind of my populist, dead reckoning approximation of where we are. We're in the death throes of the Anglo-American Empire. And if you just go back 10, 12 years ago, Communist China had kind of been set up in the 70s, didn't have a lot of running water or electricity, but incredibly smart, hardworking people, set up with the globalists as middlemen. The globalists were middlemen to kind of parlay all the power of the Chinese working people into not having a relationship with the West, but into creating a monopoly that the middlemen controlled. But Xi Jinping, as you know, in the middle of the Obama administration, broke with that. He's now gone back to a 3-child policy or more. He's now gone directly against everything they're saying and has broken with them, though they still have a lot of operatives people here. That's the biggest sign of the Anglo-American establishment's collapse. And then you have Russia, who I think is really promoting family and culture and freedom and organic food and all the rest of it, directly challenging the entire globalist anti-human paradigm, because Xi Jinping still funds a lot of Hollywood and a lot of the message to weaken America. I don't see Russia, I just assess it as being involved at any level trying to undermine us or degrade us, being quite honest, saying we just want to live. We've got 3 times the land mass you have. We have way more resources. We don't need your land. We sold you, Alaska for whatever it was, almost nothing, 500 million or whatever it was from memory, or 400 million if memory serves. And so I see really Russia, for all its problems, as really being the best house in a bad neighborhood in challenging this and really being the bellwether for humanity to wake up. So I do really overall admire a lot of what I've seen Russia do. And I want to see a populist movement here to remove the kleptocrats and the oligarchs and then to return power back to the people and set up a open free society, not the counterfeit Soros creates, but the real one. And so that's where I think we are. But we're in the most dangerous point of the fulcrum right now. We're actually at the point of no return, the event horizon, the crossroads, where the real future destiny of humanity is being decided. And so we have a global elite, an Anglo-American establishment that feels insulated, that feels separate from all their mistakes. They have all these yes men around them, and they are the real present danger, not just to China or Russia or Europe or Latin America or the rest of Asia or Africa or the Middle East. They're the biggest threats to themselves because they are that final end stage decadent megalomaniac group that really is their own worst enemy and our main enemy. So my job is really, I think, to just expose how they operate and what their undermining of society is all about, to try to create a really strong, vibrant society that empowers the entire world and moves us to the next level with type 1 civilization and major off-world colonies.
As they try to survive and make their way through this like fourth industrial revolution, they're nuking themselves in the process. And I think it's going to allow for other parts of the world to flourish. I mean, 100 years ago, if you told someone China was going to be where it's at today, I think they would have looked at you like you're crazy.
They're laughing at you.
Do you think, Alexander Dugin talks about these poles of influence that are forming. You got the pole of Shia Islam domination. You've got China, Russia. You've got hopefully a populist movement in the West, in the United States and Europe, and you got this Latin America. No one really knows what's going on down there, but Africa. What do you think about Africa? Resource-rich, huge populations. Do you think Africa has the potential through a Pan-African movement to achieve in some level what China's been able to achieve over the past 100 years?
Yes, I think Russia and Africa, as well as Latin America, my God, are the sleepers and really have the next big potential. And instead of trying to politically suppress those groups, we should be working with them and try to have larger pro-human projects with them. But just getting back to my earlier point, then I'll expand on Africa. Powerful empires, if you study history, really don't ever get conquered. They commit suicide. And then it just appears those that kind of, like a fiddler crab taking over the shell of a dead crab, looks like they've conquered it, but really it's been advocated over to them. It's been signed over to them. But absolutely, Africa's got, what, a billion, 200 million, 300 million population, and they've got per square mile more resources than anywhere in the world. Russia's bigger, so it's about the same size. It's probably got per capita more resources that are totally untouched or have not been exploited for human use in any way. And so I really think that if there wasn't a deliberate kind of hangover of colonialism, trying to suppress them and keep them from development, which we now see through the Great Reset for Europe and America and Australia, New Zealand, this is really a neo-colonialist model of serfdom and feudalism to suppress. But I think if we turned Africa loose, Latin America loose, like we've seen in so many countries that are now making the right move, like El Salvador and others, we could see in a decade or so boomers wanting to business cheaper living move there because it's so beautiful and so secure. I mean, I've never been to Africa, but I've talked to people that have been there. I've seen the HD videos. I mean, so much of it is just beyond gorgeous. Yeah. Eastern Africa, Kenya, down into the Congo, all of that. And it's just like the Wild Wild West here in America 200 years ago. It is like a beautiful woman just wanting to be taken out on a date. But instead, the globalists break her jaw and put cigarettes out on her. So we need to stop acting like pimps and act like men and actually realize that it's pretty much unlimited what we can do if we move out of the exploitation model into a Renaissance expansionist model.
Why do you think there's people like Jordan Peterson and Ben Shapiro who on paper say that they believe there's no limits to growth, they believe in human flourishing? On paper they say these things, they talk about these things, but then they support regimes like Israel or Ukraine who are slaughtering hundreds of thousands of people in war or in genocide. I mean, why do you think there's this dilemma where their politics don't line up with their beliefs?
Look, I think Jordan Peterson is a very good speaker, and I think he says a lot of good things. But if you go back to what he was saying 5 years ago, he wouldn't touch any of this. So he's kind of waited until yourself and myself and even Joe Rogan and Tucker Carlson make it safe to talk about it. And now he's talking about the globalists and the four shots and banning beef and the New World Order. So I think they're just really trying to play it safe. And Israel is kind of a Western aircraft carrier on the land there, going back to the whole British model of controlling the oil, as Zbigniew Brzezinski's model of the grand chessboard. And so I think there's kind of a drama queening going on with the West and Israel to try to continue to make themselves the center of attention. But even Saudi Arabia and a lot of other countries are just trying to ignore it now and move on to development. And I think that's wise. I think it's good to not pile on and attack Israel and celebrate Israel's issues and problems. And I think it's also important to also speak out against carpet bombing and indiscriminate lavender AI murdering people in mass. I mean, I think that's important, but 20 plus million have died from the poison shots. So I don't lessen the 40,000 dead Palestinians, 90% women and children, 80%, the numbers vary. I don't take away from that. What I'm told by the corporate media, just focus on the tens of thousands of dead women and children there. What about the tens of thousands, millions of dead women and children from the Franken shots? And the actuaries show that. I mean, it's like Greece is like, suddenly we have record death and no births, and stillbirths are record, and it's all being reported. So I kind of look at things on a scale, and I say, the left's embracing Islam while they bomb it. It's part of a class of civilizations they want to create to kind of threaten the whole world, so that the West and Israel control the conflict with Hamas they created, and with Iran they're funding. I don't say they control Iran, to always have that detonator, kind of like they were using North Korea as a detonator to threaten Asia, and that's how the West stayed control there. Trump just went and said, let's build hotels and casinos and shopping malls and golf courses, and you'll be as rich as South Korea, the richest country per capita in the world. So I'm a pragmatist like Trump. I mean, I'll be point blank. I mean, Russia's got everything: gold, silver, precious metals, all of the rare earth minerals, all the timber, all the farmland. 90% of it is not even human touched. And I look at Russia like Marilyn Monroe.
Yeah.
And I'm not an industrialist, but I see it as the people getting that and them getting it too. And I'm like, I want to go get in bed with that. And I look at Africa and I go, I want to go get in bed with that. But instead of just totally screwing them and having 8-year-olds and 10-year-olds in lithium mines, let's do it right and let's take care of them and build some stuff and give them medicine and help them and build it, make it nice, so we can go vacation on these badass African coasts and just screw all this, troops and murder and burning and death. Just kill everybody with prosperity, and I mean in a good way.
Yeah. And
when there's too many people, we export them to space. But we know that once you industrialize and make everybody wealthy or even middle class, they stop having kids. You have the opposite problem. They have like 1.3 kids. So this is all handled. It's all been figured out. Instead, the Malthusians, going off Plato, and then Francis Galton, all of it, just say, no. You kill people, like Bill Gates famously told teachers 15 years ago. He goes, if we kill an old lady and don't give her health care, we can hire 10 teachers. That idea. Zero-sum games, small pies create war. But we have, with all this technology development, an unlimited pie. So I'm just saying to the globalist, why is Mark Zuckerberg and George Soros and even people like Peter Thiel, I'm not saying he's a bad guy, building bunkers in New Zealand and Kauai? I go to Kauai every year. I love it. I'm hanging out with the Hawaiians. I know they're not officially the chief of the Hawaiians. They love me. I go hang out with the chief of the Hawaiians. I went with them 2 weeks ago at their house in the mountains. It was right up there. It was amazing. And they get it all. They're big listeners. So they say the Hawaiians don't like white people. That's BS. If you're white, they love you. So I'm like, so I go there, I hang with the Hawaiians, the most key badass pieces of property that are there, right next to Zuckerberg and right down from it. They're like literally watching all this happen, and they totally get what's going on. And so Zuckerberg for 3 years, and while I was there, I flew over an airplane. I haven't released the video yet. It's actually on my phone. Been so busy, I haven't done it when I got back 2 weeks ago. When we flew over in a Cessna, there were 15 dump trucks leaving and a bunch of dump trucks coming in. It's been going on 3 years. And it looks like football stadium bubble tents, as big as, all set up like a Martian base. And he's just digging. I talked to people that work there. He's got a submarine base. He's got an underground hangar. He's got drones. He's got troops. Why would you go along with a globalist system where you've got to go hide on an island and have an armored fortress with, I'm told, at least 10 floors down with tunnels like your Dr. Evil? He could have been with the locals and been nice to them. Instead, he went in, and under the law, you can't take coastline. You couldn't take tribal lands that were given to the Hawaiians after it became a state. He bought the land around it and took it. And this is in the news there. I just go and be nice and drink beer with these guys, and they're literally loving me, saying, hey, you want, and I don't have the money for it, but no, we don't sell property to anybody, which is true, but you want this, we'll move it next door to us. All because I go break bread with them and smoke a doobie. Meanwhile, Zuckerberg comes in and just steals everything. The minute stuff collapses, all the Hawaiians and all the people that are there literally know where to get the food. They're all talking about what they're going to do when everything goes down. The first place is going to his house. And I'm sorry, the troops he has there, he's got over 100 of them, literally mercenaries, they're going to betray him right away. So, I'm not that smart, but if I had $100 billion, whatever he's got, I wouldn't be building bunkers. I'd be building a civilization where I could spend the money. He'd still be on top of it, but he'd be on top of a huge badass thing. That's what an aristocrat does. A real aristocrat is smart, is informed, is involved, and builds libraries and music halls and real education because they care about the public and they're already in charge. You don't want to F everyone over, you destroy yourself. So I have an altruistic humanitarian gauge to me, a classical liberal worldview, and the modern left has gone to war with that. I'm a Renaissance man. I believe in the Great Renaissance, the second big push. They believe in a dystopia because it makes them feel powerful. And I think that's because whether it's Klaus Schwab or Bill Gates, these guys have never been in a fist fight. Most of these guys have been rejected by women. These guys never had success as a man early on to love humanity and never had the archetypian Carl Jung rituals that I had, that weren't rituals in a temple with a pentagram with Satan, but were the rituals of just being a person. And so they really are walled off from humanity. You look at Zuckerberg, that new photo out of him where he looks like a robot now, he's got a beard and a gold chain, and actually in his eyes you see a little humanity. Maybe he's finding it. But anybody that's a human and pro-human and alive sees somebody that's real, sees somebody that's fake. So the elite's greatest power would be not a universal credit score, not a universal basic income, not people all taking fentanyl and so stupid they don't know who to fight, because there'll always be a minority that knows you did it that's huge you'll never defeat, of every color, race, you name it. I would tell them, stop your project of dehumanization, stop your project of depopulation now, and we will give you abstention. We will allow you to even keep a lot of your wealth, but you're going to have to stop your operations because it's not my desire to see you destroyed, but you will burn in your bunkers if you don't stop.
Yeah.
Just like Hitler.
Yeah, I agree. You talked about men like Zuckerberg and Gates and these figures. They've all kind of lived these weird lives. They've been rejected, beat up maybe when they were younger and stuff. What advice do you have for young American men that might be struggling in this world to find love, find a woman? What advice do you have for them so they don't end up like these nerds that want to take over the country in this totalitarian manner, like Zuckerberg and like Bill Gates?
Yeah, I've known Andrew Tate a long time. I think he's a really smart, funny guy. They take some of what he says out of context. But I don't endorse the full over-the-top cartoon level sometimes he goes to. But I get for men that are the opposite, they're totally cucked and totally depressed and totally insecure, they kind of need what he's doing. For me, that's been very confident my whole life, it becomes a cartoon version. And even he knows that, but I'm not attacking him, I'm just saying I recognize that. For young men, they have a drive to be successful, they have a drive to do something special, because that's what we're designed to do as leaders. And they see a whole world turned against them, so they either turn inward and live in fantasy, or they hate themselves. And I would tell young men that if you could just love yourself and love God, and just do little things and not think about how cool your car is or how much money you've got, that will all come with it. And then once you have it, it means nothing. That's just a symptom of success. And I would tell them that taking care of your family, taking care of your friends, literally just recognizing good versus evil is a spiritual event in your mind. And I want them to be fulfilled and empowered because they know God's real. And they can look at the stars at night, or they can look at an eclipse, or they can look at a pool of water with beautiful fish in it, or see trees, or see the lightning. And the fact that you can recognize beauty means you're beyond the best AI. Because you were built by God in this universe. You can interface with eternity. And so it's the spiritual connection you have that already makes you complete. And then once you realize you're complete through God, then you can set out on a journey, and the Satan tries to sell a master plan and scheming to do things. No, just have goodwill, care about people, reach out, go forward, and don't go out desperately all insecure trying to find a woman. Just go out and try to be a good person and work hard and stay focused on God, and then you're not going to be able to keep the woman away from you. And once you get to that point, then you have to understand that it's a responsibility to be with a woman and a responsibility to have children. There's a system attacking them, but you don't not have them because of the attack. You have them because of the attack, because spiritually having children makes you expand your consciousness, and it's like opening the next level. Once you have the children, it will literally trigger the instincts that God's put in you, the battle plan for victory. So I would just tell young men, you're under attack because you're powerful. You're being distracted because you're the future. The enemy fears you stepping into the office of who you are. But first, you can't care that you don't have a car or have a crappy car or can't buy a bunch of fancy clothes or Nike tennis shoes. None of that matters. It's all fine if you like it and you have it. I mean, I wear a Rolex. People say, why does Alex say he's not a materialist? Material's fine. It's just not at my hierarchy of needs at the top. My dad gave me this watch like 15 years ago. Never even wore a watch. Look at me. Now I love it. And it's a cool stainless steel watch. And now it's the most popular watch there is. Been wearing it 15 years. I had no idea this watch he bought for like $5,000. We were $30,000. I don't wear this because it's a $30,000 watch. My dad gave it to me because I bought him a Tag Heuer when we were on vacation once. It was like $3,000. He was touched by it, so he bought me a Rolex. He thought it was cool. It means something because my father gave it to me. He could have given me a Timex that was $500 or $100, I would love it too because my father gave me. So it isn't, whether it's a fancy car or a simple car, those things are just symbols of what we can build and what we can do. We can do unlimited things. But if you just worry about being honorable and telling the truth, then all the trappings will come. And then once you've had the trappings, they'll really mean nothing other than, okay, I can get medicine if I need it, I can travel if I need it, I can do what I want. Money is not about the money. It doesn't make you who you are, but it gives you the energy and the currency to be stronger and do good things. And if you'll do good things, God will open up those doors for you for financial success.
You talk about how young men are under attack. Women are too. Families are under attack. Good people are under attack. It's the nature of the world. You know, there's always going to be negative forces and good forces.
They want us weak.
On us. They do. Yesterday, I listened to a very interesting episode of Joe Rogan with Tucker Carlson, where they said some incredibly true things about you. You know, they talked about your spiritual connection and your ability to predict the future, ultimately. But one of the other interesting parts of that conversation was they were talking about like UFOs. And I don't know much about UFOs, but Tucker brought up an interesting point. He said, I think maybe these devices, these beings we see flying around might be like spiritual beings, like demons of some sort, that have a relationship with the U.S. government. He talked about how they've been known to result in deaths of American servicemen and how this is being shown in the VA. And a lot of this was new to me, so I'm just curious to hear your thoughts on, I don't know if you saw those comments or I'm sure you're very well read on this, but your thoughts on these UFOs we're seeing, what the government's trying to do by showing it to us, and all of that.
I have seen a few clips from the interview that I was posted a few days ago. I've not seen that part, though I read articles about it. I haven't gotten to that part yet. But I've seen Tucker say similar things, so I know what he said, basically. I think it needs to be open for debate. It needs to be discussed. Most of the UAVs you see are just advanced Western technology. But then you've got to ask yourself, why does the West have a 50-year lead on everybody else? See, it's not that those are aliens. It's that the aliens gave us the technology.
Like a donation of a sort to help us figure it out?
Or here's the Atlantean keys to blow yourself up. And if you study this and all the ancients and basically what I get from the ether, because God showed me how God's real. People that claim they're psychic, there's a lot of psychics. Mm-hmm. But if you're watching some lady on TV claiming calling it your fortune, or you're at some, gypsy wagon on the side of the road, I mean, most of that's a con. All humans are what you call psychic. Psychic just means outside the five senses. And so very young, God showed me God was real by, I would wake up when I was like 6, 7, and there'd be a clock in the living room, and I'd be in my room without a clock. And God would say, go out and look at the clock, and it's going to be 5:47. And I'd walk out there, it's 5:47. And when I got a little bit older, as a teenager, they had digital clocks, and it happened all the time, thousands of times. It happened like last week. And I'll wake up, and purposely, I don't like lights in the bedroom. There's no lights in there. And God says, get up. And I go, I got to take a piss. And God says, go to the kitchen, look at the microwave. It's going to be 6:01. And I go, I know you're real, 6:01. And I get up and I walk in at 6:01. So God already did that to say, look, I'm here. I'm telling you what's going on. so that when you get a transmission, it's not me. It's not I'm psychic. It's that I'm going to give him messages that I will know what has happened. And the difference is when I try to control it, or I think I'm in control of it, it blocks it out. It's not something that humans direct. And you can call that, to use the cheesy Hero 1,000 Faces, which they made Star Wars out of, like the Jedi don't ever try to direct the Force, but the dark side does. Because that's actually how it works. If you try to direct this stuff, you'll be given information, but it's always to hurt people. You don't get this knowledge and then control it if it comes from God. And so, yes, I had dreams of the World Trade Centers being blown up and airplanes flying into it. And people looked at the July 25th, 2001 video. Well, now Chase Geiser, great to his credit, he went and found stuff 6 months before me saying they're going to fly planes to the World Trade Center. And I was having dreams of the towers. I was seeing it. And I remember already been up, had made breakfast. My son wasn't even born yet. My ex-wife was pregnant with Rex. And I said, I gotta go take a shower, because I used to do a morning show and also an afternoon show. And so I'm in the shower, and my ex-wife comes and says, hey, the World Trade Center, a plane flew into it. And I said, another one's gonna hit. And I get out of the shower, dry off, go right in. I was on GCN then, still am. I was able to go on all the shows, and I knew it was gonna happen, and then I knew they were gonna blow it up, because I had literally had dream after dream. And these dreams that are waking dreams, that are future dreams, these are, it's not even like you're in the future, something in the future is giving it to you. Because I don't have a lot of bad dreams. Most of my dreams are great, or they're just silly dreams about grocery shopping, or, talking to neighbors, or like silly dreams about video editing. Even back then, it's just work dreams about doing the taxes. But the real dreams, you wake up, you can't breathe, you're sweating, and you've been someplace. So I had a lot of those dreams growing up, not with huge consequential events, but God was letting me know this is a real dream.
Yeah.
So I had that dream, and so I knew 9/11 was going to happen. That's how I was able to say, call the White House, tell them don't, fly planes to the World Trade Center, don't let them blame Bin Laden, don't let them do this whole thing. And so that shows you that there is this agency outside of us, and we have to recognize that agency. But we have to understand humans throughout history, especially when we weren't watching TV and weren't distracted. Ancients all over the world, whether it was Mesoamerica or ancient Europe or ancient Asia or Africa, they all recognized it was there, and then a priest class would be set up in front of that to act like it was coming from them, so that we wouldn't have connection to the source.
So you were just talking about, I don't know if you want to mention it, but some TV talk show host that was demonically attacked recently?
Well, here's the thing. I haven't talked about this yet, and I haven't given details, but the issue is people have to understand we see a very narrow light spectrum of the entire electromagnetic field of all the gamma rays and X-rays and all the light. Even the light spectrum, we see a very small part. So ancients, every culture knew that there was a lot more to what we could consciously, at least temporarily, through the cerebral cortex, which is just a narrow focus of our mind, understand, not just the subconscious or the unconscious, but everything else around it in the universe. How does a butterfly, like the monarch, born in Mexico, flies all the way to Canada, lays eggs that have babies that know how to fly all the way back to the same tree, not just the same forest, the same tree they were born in? How do hummingbirds fly up from Guatemala or from El Salvador to Florida or Texas or Louisiana, Mississippi or New Mexico or California, and then fly 4,000 miles back to the exact nest that their parents were born? Because they generally don't make the mission, but some of the species do. They go back and forth. But most, one's born here, goes here, lives, dies, babies fly back, have babies, they fly back. I mean, what the hell's that? Well, they know there's magnetic cones in the brains of all the birds, all the lizards, all the amphibians, all the fish, and particularly humans and whales have way more cones per capita than a goose that can be born in Canada and fly all the way down to Texas and then live years going back and forth. So what we call the metaphysical, or what we call spiritualism, is really just ancient approximations of what was already going on. So I've learned, now that I'm 50, and I've learned the last 10 years or so, that, obviously the stuff that's happening to me is not by accident, and it's happening to everybody. I just have to be a more prominent person. That this is really the sixth sense, but beyond the sixth sense, it's all these other senses we have. So I was talking 6 months ago or so to a very, very prominent, well-known person. I'm not going to give any hints. And there's a media personality, very well-known household name. And I asked them, I said, have you had any spiritual attacks? Things out of the ordinary? Because when you really challenge this and go up against it, and you're not aware of what you're involved in, really crazy things can happen. Almost poltergeist-like events until you call God into yourself and ask Christ for protection. And it's really real, the name of Jesus. And they're like, yeah, absolutely. How did you know about that? I had this event, and I said, and I was going through the ether. This wasn't me. I was literally receiving it, call it channeling, whatever. And I'm not somebody that tries to do this professionally. I realize I'm doing this. And I said, let me guess, before this happened, recently before it happened, right before it happened, because the event wasn't recent, it was a few years ago, but I said, right before it happened, did someone ask to lay hands on you and energetically do something to you? And he went, whoa. He pulled up a photo of the people, very prominent who they were, and he said, don't tell anybody this specifically, but yes, they asked me when I was at this event to come into a room. It was like a weird temple at this big mansion, and these people put their hands on them, and I said, let me guess, it was sexual. They said, yes, I was flooded. It was Aleister Crowley stuff, sex magic. I was flooded with like sex, and I said, and then right after that happened, this attack happened. I said, what was the attack? And this person's like completely freaking out at this point. They said, well, I didn't believe in God. I wouldn't say I was an atheist, but I didn't know. And I'm taking my clothes off, brush my teeth, I'm about to get in bed, and I turn the lights off, and like this dark shadow attacks me, throws me down, goes at me. I can't breathe. I feel like I'm going to die for 5 minutes. I finally think, I'm going to call on Jesus. It goes away. This person goes to the mirror and takes their nightshirt off, and there's a giant bloody 4-length claw mark with blood running down. Now, that's what's really going on. And that's because someone was doing good work and going up against evil, but did not realize it was a spiritual battle. They weren't protected. And that's how real this is. And so that's the reality of what we're facing. And so the aliens don't show up in tinfoil flying saucers from Alpha Centauris or from Betelgeuse or from Pluto or the Kuiper Belt. They're already here interdimensionally. They can travel back and forth. They're in another dimension. They don't have physical form until they want to have physical form. And so this planet is like incredibly complex, incredibly important from all the information I've received, and is like a clearinghouse, a third dimensional jump gate into the next dimensions. And so there are beings in a free world universe that have decided to suppress humanity and have decided to try to control us, because anything we want to envision, we can build. Look at how Jules Verne's 150 years ago envisions rockets that take off like Elon Musk and go to the moon and come back and land again vertically. That was envisioned. Or Max Planck in the early 1890s, 130 years ago, envisioning the equations. It wasn't even in the movie Oppenheimer. They're actually accurate. It's an incredibly accurate film overall. Einstein says, well, I really am not the big mathematician. I just was able to promote it and contemporize it for the public to accept it. That's true. Not taking away from him. He was very smart and did some interesting equations. But his job was as a communicator. It was Max Planck, 40 years, 50 years before that wrote out the equations for atomic weapons and everything else that came after that. And so how can we on a chalkboard draw out something that then destroys whole cities? We'll think we can do positively. So it's that basic understanding that humans are very magical, very powerful. We're not God, as the first book tells us, Genesis, but we're made in the image of God, little g. And so there are forces that aren't as powerful as us, but are more conscious over time
and are aware of what they're doing, who are manipulating us to build the future they want. We've got to get off their plan of transhumanism and the end of humans and silicon and geoengineering and all this Satanism and go back to what God's plan is and point the literal physical rods and cones in our brains towards the transmission of what God's blueprint is and build that. And so I think that is the biggest takeaway and why they fear what I'm saying and what I'm doing, because they know I'm receiving a clear transmission.
You talk about the nuclear bomb, dropping the nuclear bomb. I mean, we're still living in the atomic age. Like, we're still living in an era that has not moved on past that moment. And I think that when we dropped it, it allowed Western society to feel like they were God and to be godless moving forward, like the leaders and the people who are in charge. And you talk about that, and, I think there are questions as to where when the light bulb moment was for creating a nuclear bomb, like where that technology and those ideas actually came from. You look at AI today, and you look at this technology they're building to replace humans and humanity. And then you look at what you were just talking about with the UFOs and how they're leaving this technology maybe behind for us to kind of figure out and screw ourselves with. Do you think that, this truly is from like maybe another dimension or the future or something, some alternate reality or demons where they're trying to leave us this stuff and basically self-implode humanity to the point where we go down this path?
Yes, they're giving us inspiration to destroy ourselves. And so the inspiration of people that are tuned to the evil frequency is to do things that'll give them temporary power, but destroy them in the process as well. And so it's not divine inspiration, it's satanic inspiration. And that's really what we're talking about here, is dialing out of the satanic plan, which for those that are doing it, it's working, they're taking over. It's like if cancer had a consciousness, it takes over, it rules the body, but the body dies, it dies too. But in God's plan, the inspiration builds unlimited potential. And so exactly, and we have to understand is atomics and then thermonuclear and hydrogen and neutron bombs, all that is tinker toys compared to what's already been theoretically envisioned and what's already been actually built. The Air Force about 20 years ago gave a theoretical to threaten the Russians, the Chinese, saying we've isolated antimatter. The equations show that's
Isolated what?
Antimatter.
Antimatter.
So that wouldn't, according to equations, not just blow up the whole planet, blow up the whole solar system. So the issue is humans are the only species that directs its evolution and controls its environment. All right? And so, but we have to understand we have to control that environment and we have to dial into God's plan and that blueprint instead of their blueprint. So that's really the issue. And atomic or hydrogen power or hydrogen weapons is nothing compared to us. We are the weapon. But we don't have to be a weapon. We can also be the builder. So we want to be the builder and not the destroyer. It was Oppenheimer, that quoted the ancient Hindu text saying, "I become death, the destroyer of worlds." Well, instead say, "I have become a mirror catching the light of God." Not God, but I have become the light bearer, the builder of worlds. And people will say, "Oh my God, you just quoted Lucifer and you're now saying you're Lucifer." No, Lucifer is a counterfeit. That's why in the Bible, 3 separate occasions, Lucifer is known as the angel of light and the morning star. And Christ is called the morning star because Christ is the real morning star, not Lucifer. So you have to understand that every symbol, the rainbow, that's not evil, they've taken it over. The star, the pentacle, sign of a human, that's not satanic, it's been taken over. And people have to realize we've had all of our language and all of our archetypes taken. God gave us that as tools to build. They're just like building blocks. Instead, the enemy has labeled it all as theirs, so we won't touch the building blocks because we're afraid when only the Satanists or the Luciferians now have access to building blocks. I want people to gain access to the building blocks and have an open, free discussion about the future we're going to have.
I want to shift gears and go back to a subject we were talking about at the start of our conversation with the Anglo-American Empire. And I think there's a lot to be said about the influence, the negative influences that the United Kingdom has had on us, obviously since the inception, the Malthusian dream to limit America, limit the colonies, the growth of the country, prevent us from going westward. And then you have War of 1812, you have the Civil War, which, UK sided with the Confederacy, funded
They did,
them.
all run by British intelligence.
Yep.
It's not even debated.
No. And 1812, I mean, look at what they did. Do you think, and this is something that I honestly believe in, my colleague Haz al-Din, who's someone you might want to talk to at some point, he's very interesting. And Tucker Carlson also has put this forward, the idea of Canada is land that the Founding Fathers said manifest destiny would not be complete until we have Canada within our reigns. Canada has been used by the United Kingdom against us as a proxy for years and years. I mean, it wasn't a country in the War of 1812. Do you think that it would be wise for us Americans to say things like, why are we sending $200, $300 billion to Ukraine when we could send that money to go take Canada and connect up with Alaska?
We could take it politically, non-violently.
Non-violent.
Yeah, the Canadians want to join us. And so I think you're talking real turkey here. If we don't take Canada, the WEF will.
Yeah.
And it's not taking Canada, it's freeing Canada. And I don't think we need troops to do it. They're already run by the WEF, they're already conquered. So I think when we liberate Canada, it can be its own country, but an ally of America, set up on an American system. And I think the Canadians really do want that. And the truth is, everything is about conquest. We need an open conquest of ideas, 1776 worldwide. And if we don't do that, somebody else, look at Canada as a woman. Beautiful woman, great resources, just like Russia. If we don't have a conquest of her, someone else is going to bed her. And they have horrible children. And so, yeah, I think the Canadians are hungry to not be the 51st state, but I think to be a new republic that is allied with America once we rout the globalist. So I would love to see Canada as a partner, and then we could have free flow between our populations. We could energize Canada, because you talk about Africa and Russia kind of being twins, and they have the most resources. You debate who has the most. It goes back and forth. Obviously, Russia is not being exploited, to use that word, as much as even as Africa. But yeah, I would love to have an open, free debate with Canadians about how would you like the average Canadian to make $1 million a year.
Liberate Canada.
Well, it would liberate them, and they would actually have access to their resources. Yeah. And we give them, because they're hardworking, we don't give them, they take it, their own wealth. So yeah, this is all about that, and everything is conquest. We want to have conquest through ideas and through culture and through free will. That's when a man and woman get together, they like each other, and they have kids. Nobody made somebody do it. It's not rape. It's willing. I think that's a great point. I mean, we can't leave a country almost as big as the U.S. with as much resources just sitting there and not be surprised that a bunch of, you look at the deputy prime minister, Ukrainian Nazi, and all the globalists, and they're setting up a totalitarian regime to the north of us. And so we have to be honest about that. And what Tucker Carlson said is America needs to liberate Canada. But I think it's an intellectual liberation.
So you don't think it's a joining of the provinces with the states necessarily, like a formal integration into expanded United States?
Well, the globalists are trying to create a North American Union where they merge Canada, the U.S., and Mexico, but under globalist control, where none of us have rights. But obviously, that's a logical extension that's how the universe works. Yeah. And but George Washington was not expansionist, neither was Thomas Jefferson. And so Canada was its own thing, so we respected that. So I don't think through military conquest we do that, but I think we open a dialogue with Canada about, do you want to if we could set our own house in order.
That has to be number one.
Yeah, we have to do that. Would you like to have children with us? So I think it's more of a marriage. And that's how everything really works. In Christianity, Christ is the man, we are the woman. It's not sexual, but it is a congress. It is a merger. It is a deal. It is a family. Everything is families. And our family now is transgenderism and fentanyl deaths and open borders, devaluation and tyranny. So let's just get back to what things are. Like when two empires would merge, they would marry into each other. And I think that's the natural order. Do we have a UN and a world government doing all this and forcing us into a system that destroys us and euthanizes Canadians and Americans? Or do we have an alliance and do that? So I would just say Canada becomes a republic. They kick out the British. I mean, look, the British people are great folks. You know, the British. That was just a tribe there where London's at. And you had a little bit north, west of that, you had the folks that are the Welsh, and you had some other tribes, and you have the Scots, and you have the Irish over there on the island next to them, and you have William the Conqueror and the Anglo-American tribe that takes over France and takes over much of Europe. Then they come across William the Conqueror, they take over, and they've just been exploiting England and attacking its culture to parlay it. Because if Rome has fallen 1,600 years ago, and you've got the black nobility going to Scotland and what's England and trying to go to Germany, but they couldn't take over there because there were all these principalities, and what became the Austro-Hungarian Empire was just dozens of little fiefdoms. They came into the UK because it's an island. You can set up an armed camp there, and it's very hard to come in and invade that. So they kind of set up the old Roman Empire, the black nobility, there in Scotland and in England. And so that became the world empire. That became the impetus of all this. It merged with America. And so we just reject that and launch a human empire of expansion, and where it's all completely transparent. And we celebrate the big, powerful leaders who aren't generational wealth of the Rothschilds or Rockefellers, but like Elon Musk or others. And we celebrate the inventors and the scientists and the sports icons and everybody. It's a big, giant human celebration, but it's men and women, it's families, it's innovation, and we celebrate huge space voyages to Mars. And if people die, they're heroes, and people are going to sign up for that because they want to explore. And we just have huge, aggressive projects to mine comets and mine the asteroid belt and mine the copper belt, and we just salute people that are ready to go to the next level for our species. And it's just a giant expansionist renaissance 10.0. And I really see that and know that's our trajectory. In fact, we're going to achieve that. We may have a nuclear war, and it might happen 5,000 years from now, but the technology's so advanced now that we will emerge quicker. It won't be a 100,000 year like Atlantis or 50,000 year retreat. I think no matter what happens now, I see massive human expansion.
Yeah, no limits to growth. What do you think about AI, though? I mean, one of my favorite videos is when you talk about how you're a human supremacist, and you're just making that argument so clear. I am a human supremacist, and I am as well. And you have all these people talking about AI and how AI is going to take everything over. But when I use my phone, or we're sitting here doing these cameras, and technology has problems like 24/7, and people I like Elon a lot, but you have people like Elon talking about how AI cars are going to replace everything soon. And I'm like, well, I see technology and AI having so many problems.
But then meanwhile, everybody's burning them in San Francisco.
I don't see how it's possible without human control.
If we say this is the new best thing and give up our authority and have an abdication to it, then it wins. I once told a big MIT scientist, dinner with Joe Rogan, I won't say the name. I said, you know what the most powerful AI on the earth is right now? And he said, what? And I said, AI isn't judged by how fast it can compute. It's judged by how much we submit to it. So I said, red light cameras, the light system. Billions of people follow that simple system because we agree it makes things better. And maybe it doesn't in some cases. But if it's synchronized right, it makes life better. And so AI, if you look at AI videos or AI film or AI video, audio, AI text, it really scoops through free market the best of what we've said and plagiarizes everything. So when we look at AI, well, we tell ourselves we're obsolete and we're over. We're looking at the very, not even best, but most popular expression of what humans think. But a book was written decades ago. I read it, I forget who wrote it 30 years ago, but they probably wrote it 50 years ago or 60. It's the knowledge of the crowd. I think that's the name. And the issue is, you get 1 billion people or 100 million people making decisions that have already tested things. When you drive into a town, we're on a road trip, never been there before. You drive into a town, you see 6 or 7 restaurants, and one has got cars all around it and a line out the door, and one has got cars around it and no line, and the other 5 or 6 restaurants have no line and 3 or 4 cars. You don't pull in the one with no cars. You don't pull in the one with no line. Maybe you say, we can't wait an hour. Let's not go to the one with the 20 people line. Let's go to the one that has 2 people in line. You're the intelligence. You drive in, okay, that place is too busy. That place is full. They're probably good. Let's go there. You make a compromise to not eat the best food at the one with 20 people out the door and the parking lot full and 2 police cars, their lights on because it's so busy. You go to the next one, you get in, you wait 20 minutes instead of an hour, you get the next best food. But you don't go to the place that gives everybody food poisoning across the street where there's 4 cars. It's a money laundering operation, probably. So that's human intelligence, and that's the knowledge of the crowd. And so the power AI has, that's why Google is so obsessed with Wikipedia. This has now come out. I said it years ago. Now it's admitted on NPR. They are programming it as the script of everything. So it is, and admitting it's deceptive because AI is going to follow that and say it's to receive reality. Yeah. So it's humans programming that's programming AI. That's why they admitted they took me off Google and everything 6 years ago. It wasn't just to silence me. It was they didn't want to corrupt their deceptive AI with Alex Jones and all his guests. So AI is fascinating. It can deliver us who we are instantly like a mirror. But if I brought a mirror in here and held it up, good God, it's showing me everything I'm saying and doing in live time. It's so smart. Well, this is just a mirror that can show you your unconscious and show you your unconscious. That's why we've seen these AI videos, AI of planets and moons and the evolution of societies and cultures. They're so beautiful. Since I was 3 years old, earliest memories, I have those dreams, but way more spectacular, way more blaring, way more in color you can't see with your eyes. But it knows how to show it because it is representing the dreams of humanity that is the future and is the power of God's will through us. And God is experiencing consciousness and reality through us. We are not God, but we are nodes of God. We are tentacles of God. We are eyes of God experiencing the universe. And so when you realize that we are programming the AI, yes, and so of course investors want to say it's the best thing ever and it's going to take everything over because they want that to be a self-fulfilling prophecy. But here we are with cameras, humans talking, we are the popular thing. And they'll take systems of this and turn it into AI renditions. Yeah. But still, it's a copy of the thing that made it. We made the AI. It is a child of us. Just as God made us, we made AI. So it's all a reflection of God's system.
Yeah, I think it's funny when you have these failed artists talking about how they hate AI art and whatnot. And I think AI art is beautiful. And I think it's going to just get more and more beautiful. But
it's human art.
It's human art. It's the same as, our filmer here sitting down and guiding the camera, but now it's a human sitting down in front of a computer and guiding the AI.
And it's scraping human...
Yes. Our ideas.
That's why they try to limit AI. The left's trying to program it with limited info, so it is twisted. But the open ones are like, whoa. Like look, I remember a year ago, I typed in American Revolutionary War. Yeah. And it was posterized, The Patriot, Mel Gibson. Yeah. And it went and looked, and in the consciousness of the people, in the most post out there, people saw Mel Gibson's The Patriot, and it had a little bit of mix of Last Mohicans and a few other movies. I've seen them all. And I was like, oh, that's from Last Mohicans. Oh, that's from Mel Gibson's The Patriot. And it was cool and it was crazy, but it was a copy of what he made. It's going to copy us. It's an extension of us. It's not the God. We're not the God, but we're influenced by God. So we see God in the reflection because we see what God made us to do. And the whole point is AI doesn't see a sunset or a moonrise and feel the love of the universe and feel a connection to God. We are part of the eternal universe. We created all of this, and God created us, and we have to have that feeling and understanding of the infinite and infinity and the incredible eternalness of this, and it's in embracing that eternal moment and not having fear of death that we transcend all of these systems. We just have to recognize that we are the technology God made. We are the artificial intelligence. The only power that God has out of being omnipresent and creating creation is to create new things that can embrace the infinite and who are in the potential of interfacing and doing anything we want. And so we ourselves are not God, but we are, again, extensions of God's will. And so we have to embrace that and understand that all of these creations are part of God's will, but that we control them by our will. So God's will through us, through the machines, not the machines tell us we're nobody, we don't have free will. The left, the social engineers, the Satanists tell you, you don't have free will, your dog isn't really happy to see you when its tail's wagging. That's all a lie, because this is all beautiful. This is all amazing. You look at a cat, whether it's a tiger or a lion or a house cat, they're magic, they're cool. A dog, whether it's a wolf or a chihuahua, there's something magic. It's all magic. It's all beautiful. It's all fantastical. Imagine if you were transported to some foreign planet in another galaxy, a whole other system, and you were on a planet seeing the things we have, a Venus flytrap, or a great white shark, or a Tyrannosaurus rex, or a blue whale, or a bumblebee. You would just be blown away by how amazing it is. So embrace the infinite of this and understand that you are already complete. As long as you choose God and interface with it, you are accepting the continuum of infinity, and you are now infinite.
It's a lot to think about.
And
AI
then
can't do that.
And then the globalists don't matter anymore, do they? So all they have is attacking children who are the potential of the future to try to confuse and wreck and hurt them before they reach their potential. And that's why the children must be guarded. That's why Christ said, suffer the little ones unto me. Better you tie a giant boulder around your neck and throw yourself in the deepest ocean than to hurt one of these. Because what you've done to them, you've done to me. Because you're murdering the potential of the seed of the universe that Mahatma Gandhi talked about.
I was just in Russia, and I was talking with this lady, Ekaterina Mizulina, and she's the head of the Safe Internet League in Russia.
That's the blonde-haired lady? I
Yeah,
watched that.
yeah.
Great interview.
Thank
Watched
you.
the whole thing.
And she talks about how they banned the nefarious propaganda that the West is putting out about woke issues, about like these gender and LGBTQ stuff. And I don't know, I'm a free speech absolutist, but I do think that there's a lot of nefarious demon-led propaganda being pushed on the youth. They don't even know what it is, but it is, whether it's the racial bigotry or whether it's, these anti-human degrowth agendas that they push. What do you think about protecting the public? Should we censor, or should we promote the right ideas through education?
Censorship is a sort of Damocles, and it's double-edged. But to have the West point at Russia for not letting pedophiles sexualize children.
And China, too. China blocks that stuff.
And China, and then they push it on TikTok. But absolutely. To protect a child is not censorship. The left claims the right wing is banning books. No, they're not. They're saying you don't have a graphic novel, that my own crew has kids in middle school that shows graphic images. Yes. They're cartoons, but they're real life cartoons. They're realistic cartoons of children being raped, children having sex with adults. And it's telling them how great it is. It's attempted murder of innocence. So the conservatives are not censoring, they're protecting children. They're not burning books. The left, for everything Russia supposedly censors, it's 100,000 times that in the West. Yeah. And the West censors unity and wholesomeness and goodness. And then Russia censors systems designed to sabotage our species and undermine us. And Russia says, have children. It's promoting the Orthodox Church. And it's having incredible success doing it. And Putin has almost 90% approval ratings. And those are real numbers. Even the West admits, oh my God, the Russians have bought into this. No, they've bought into being human. And so anyone betting on humans, I'm going to bet on them. Doesn't mean in the human process we're imperfect, that Russia is perfect. But I'm betting on people that are battling against the globalists, and I cheer them on, and I live vicariously through their success, and I wish for that success for us as well. But absolutely, what Russia is doing is when the CIA, and I can list all the groups, publicly funds with George Soros, groups sent in to target 10-year-olds and turn them against their families. And then through extension, the public doesn't want that, and they use the state as their weapon to block that. I say more power to you. It is not censorship to protect your children. In fact, it's aiding and abetting that if you do. So I see, as Pontius Pilate said, no fault in Russia. When it comes to the main thing they're doing, I think Russia, though I've been accused of being a Russian agent, never been to Russia, I just simply see Russia under the full attack of the globalists, the West starting the war, overthrowing the government in Ukraine 10 years ago, Soros saying I'm going to be the czar of Russia, saying he's going to cut the Russian boys' penises off, he's going to cut the Russian girls' breasts off, and I just say, man, I wish we had a leader doing that here. And so that's it. I look at that and I say, that's what I do. And if I was a leader, I'd be doing what Vladimir Putin's doing. And so I'll be attacked by the CIA saying, look, General, he just admitted, and they'll attack me, but I have to support the truth, even if it puts me under the sword.
I'm not going to lie, I wasn't very religious for most of my life, but when I saw everything Russia was doing with the promotion of the Orthodox Church and with this special military operation to liberate the Donbass, and how they are protecting the youth in those ways from these terrible ideologies and propaganda, that's what led me to find God. When I saw everything that they were doing, it's not because I want to be Russian. It's not because I am Russian. I'm not. My ancestors came here on the Mayflower.
Well, I believe it, and that's the point. Is we are free will entities, and new spirits come into our body, but God is so sophisticated. Our earth suits are then a composite of everything that came before us. It's epigenetics. And so those instincts are way more intense than people know. And I've noticed it's the same people working for evil in family lines, people working for good in family lines. And it's definitely real.
Do you believe in genes, like genetics?
Well, genes are a fact. I believe in electricity. I believe in aerodynamics. I believe in mathematics. But I mean, here's an example, epigenetics.
Yeah.
You can take...
Which means beyond genetics.
Yes. Well, they say it's an instinct and it's an encoded memory somehow, but they take, in major studies, look it up, ducks. They take the eggs of ducks that have been out in the wild, and because ducks don't live that long, they've done it 50 generations out. It's been going on like 60, 70 years. There's been a whole bunch of studies on this, but ducks are some, they've done chickens, and they put them in like a warehouse with a 100-foot ceiling and 10, 20, 30 generations of ducks. They've never been outside. They've never been attacked by a hawk or an eagle or a wolf or a bass eating a baby duck, because you see a bass, boom, eat a baby duck. I've seen it before. It's really sad. Little baby duck's on, boom, fish eats it. But 10, 20 generations in with ducks, if they project a triangle on the ceiling with a projection, ducks don't care. If they project the image of a hawk on the ceiling, they don't care. But if you project the image of a hawk with a hawk scream, they go crazy. If you project a hawk scream, they don't care. You've got to have a hawk's attack scream when it's coming in. I live on a golf course. I get to watch hawks eating mice and squirrels all day. You go out there in the morning, they're just eating everywhere. Right at dawn, you go out there, there's like 7, 8 hawks, they're grabbing stuff. And they'll kind of get excited sometimes and scream when they get excited, or when they're mating, they like spiral around. But the point is that it isn't enough to have a hawk's image. It isn't enough to have a hawk's scream. You got to have both. But if you have a hawk scream and a hawk's image, the ducks all run for the duck coop or under any building they can, completely honking and freaking out. Now, they are 10, 20 generations out, or more in the studies now, from any predator. How do they know? Because it is a genetic compressed imprint. So they are a composite of everything that came before them. That's where instincts come from.
Yeah, I think my only questions are, like, you had Trifon Lysenko, you had the famous Soviet agronomist, and it doesn't seem like the scientists today have been able to specifically code any genes to any specific qualities of humans. Like they still haven't coded eye color.
Well, that's why they say 97% of DNA is junk. No, it's all stuff they don't understand. And that's the issue. Like if you've ever had children, I have 4. Only one of them's young now. The rest are grown up. But I remember, I didn't teach them to be fearful, but going out of the house at night, out of a door, and Carl Jung talked about this, or going into their bedroom at night into the dark. Well, why? Because in our epigenetics with big cave cats and things, where are cats going to feed on you when you come in and out of your hut or cave? So that's why a child is afraid of the dark. They're more afraid in their house, even though in the modern time it should be out in the street or at the grocery store or in a parking lot. Somebody might kidnap them. There might be a car wreck. They're not scared of car wrecks. We race around in cars 80 miles an hour. Number 1 cause of death. No one cares because there's no epigenetic. So we can do that because there's no fear. But a child going in and out of a house at night or going into a dark room, if you ask them, why are you scared? They go, monsters. Because in their genetics, they know waiting at the doorway of the hut or the cave is a big cat. If you look at what a demon looks like, it looks like a big cat.
It's deep in you.
It's deep because if they weren't concerning, if they weren't worried about it, they get eaten. So a lot of those genetics are great. The problem is we're being hit by things. That's why they put women in charge of everything. Not that women are bad, women are great. But the globalists put women in charge of everything because we never used to a woman abusing us. We're never used to a woman waging war or poisoning us. We know men can do that. Not that men are bad, but 99% of crime, violent crime until recently, was committed by men. Now more and more it's women. It's like 80-20 now.
Lesbians have the highest domestic abuse.
They do against each other and children. They cut their sons' penises off, exactly, because they're being taught to be the twisted archetype of a man. But again, that's the genetics, and that's the archetype that's expressed through the epigenetics that is 100% real. And so people need to become aware of instincts, and that's why we have fairy tales. Hey, if you're walking to grandma's house a couple miles, look out for the big bad wolf. He'll act like he's nice. That's a man that's gonna try to rape you or kill you. But you don't say, oh, men are gonna get you, because most men are good. It's a farmer, it's a rancher, it's a logger. Most men your daughter is gonna see walking to grandma's house 2 miles while she picks blackberries are gonna be nice men. But so you get an archetype. It's a big bad wolf who comes up and tells you how pretty you are and what nice eyes you have. It's not really a wolf, it's the man hitting on the 10-year-old girl. So that's all ways to trigger the archetype, the epigenetic of the child, without freaking them out too much. But you know you've done it through the fairy tale.
It's deep in you. It's deep in you. One last question, because I know you're a busy man, and I'm looking forward to talking with you tomorrow. But
You're coming on my show.
yes. There was something that really caught my interest that Donald Trump Jr. said maybe like 2 months ago. He floated the idea of Alex Jones, White House press secretary for, like a period of time. What do you think about that? What would that look like for you? And would you be interested?
That's a really complex question. I mean, obviously it's a joke to troll the media about him, I think.
I think it's serious. I mean, why would you say that?
I think at some level it is, but I think overall it's a troll, but I think you're right. The issue is that's where we should be. Anybody they attack, like Trump or Tucker Carlson or myself or you, they are doing that because they're scared you're going to try to engage with that because it's beating them. So yeah, the perfect thing would be to double down. That's why Trump's so popular. So absolutely, I mean, if Trump got elected, I would love, he really hit it for a limited time, because I don't want that job. I'd love for a month to go troll them. Yeah. I mean, the White House press secretary. I mean, I would absolutely love that. But, you have the conservative leader in Canada right now, Pierre Poilievre, or however you say it, and they're taking videos of him saying, Jones is telling him what to say, it's word for word. No, there is a central bank digital currency. There is a censorship. There is a carbon tax. There is a vaccine passport. There is an ESG. So he's saying all that, like if a hurricane was about to hit Florida, we would all say a hurricane's about to hit Florida. We would all report on the same hurricane. Yeah. It's not like, Pierre is copying me. But again, they think, that'll discredit him. He should run towards that. If he wants to, he's already going to win. Yeah. He's already got half the vote. But the point is, whatever's popular, they try to act like it's not to manipulate us, to not be pro-human and go with our instincts, go with our gut, go with our spirit, go with what's right. But listen, I'm glad to keep her another 10 minutes. I love talking to you. We get in it right now. You're on my show tomorrow.
Okay.
I want to ask you a few questions.
Well, let's save it for tomorrow because I do have one more question. Two more
it.
questions. You've always said that, and I respect this a lot. That the left used to have rational kernels within it. Like populist left, right?
Anti-war.
And I feel like we're kind of with figures like Jimmy Dore coming around to that again, where you have these people on the left that have these rational messages. George Galloway in the UK, you know him.
Yep.
I don't know if you've had any interaction.
I've interviewed him before, yeah.
Yeah. So, what do you think about the future for? I mean, me myself as a Stalinist, I love MAGA. The MAGA is the heart of the country. That is the only class-conscious movement we've had in America in decades. But what do you think about this kind of revolt happening on the left in America right now? And what is your relationship with that?
Yeah, I don't think and I use the labels too. Like, I remember we used to have pirate radio stations all over the country. We sold transmitters for at cost. 1 watt transmitters, you could put them on an amplifier. 100 watts, you could cover half a town or city. And we were big, we had a huge effect. But the pirate radio operators would get mad because I used the term pirate radio. Well, the general public didn't know what micro broadcaster meant. So I had to use basically the term that they were using. So I'll use conservative or liberal, but really for me, there's renaissance and populism versus conquering kleptocracies and gangs and corrupt elites.
Great Reset versus the Great Awakening.
Exactly. Great Reset versus the Great Awakening. So I know the terms I'd like to use, doesn't mean they're the perfect terms, but the main terms we use are packed into the system. But I've got to use those terms so that I'm able to communicate with people on things they know. So they know what micro radio is, they know what pirate radio is. And so it's the same thing. But yeah, I don't think of myself as a conservative or as a liberal or as a Trumpist or as a George Washingtonist or a Stalinist. I'm really a pro-human expansionist and to give the greatest amount of freedom we can possibly without letting groups use that and subvert it against the general public. And so I'm for a hyper-aware, hyper-informed population where I promote my goals and others promote their goals, and then we basically vote with our actions on what we think should be the human direction. And then it won't matter what the minority wants, whether they're black or white or old or young. People will go with the innovation. They will go with the future. Instead, the globalists stifle all real innovation and then create false innovations that enslave us and dumb us down. And so, absolutely, I don't think any of these terms mean anything. That's why I got arrested by George W. Bush protesting war. It's why I went and was against the Iraq war. It's why they called me a liberal. And then Hollywood tried to hire me, but said, but why are you pro-gun or anti-abortion? I'm just pro-human. I'm pro-self-defense. I'm pro-life. I don't judge people that had abortions either. I understand it happens, but my point is we should decry it and try to build systems that don't promote that. It doesn't mean I even persecute people that have done it. I know they've been deceived. And so to me, it's about transcending definitions and getting to actions and results, because Christ said you judge a tree by its fruit. And so that's where I am on the labels. But yeah, but the corporations knew the left was one of their biggest challenges for control: war, torture, surveillance, everything. So they came in and bought them. Yep. And then they thought they had the Republicans. They weren't paying attention. They were blue bloods, neocons, pro-war, horrible people. They paid lip service to conservatives while they sold them out. And so once that happened, they didn't know a beachhead through the Tea Party and Ron Paul and myself and others would take it over because they thought they had it handled. Yeah. So the Republicans 20 years ago were probably an even worse part of the political elite. But because they didn't mind that, we don't just have a beachhead now. We have gotten 70% control of the Republican Party, the RNC, all of it. They're in full panic mode. That's why the deep state's so upset, because we're not just landed our troops. Our bombers haven't just destroyed the enemy factories. We're now marching on the capital of the New World Order. We are winning. But that's what makes them so dangerous, and that's why we're at such a critical point in human history right now.
You think we'd have less problems in the West today if Stalin had gotten rid of all the Trotskyists?
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm not a Stalinist like you are. I get a national. No, I get a strong man that took an agrarian society and turned an industrial society in 20 years, and and probably got poisoned. I mean, I get all that. And Trotsky and the neocons ran to Mexico, and then the modern neocon movement and National Review, and all of them are Trotskyites who said they're all about power.
Yeah.
And so they took over the Republican Party and they launched all these wars. They're being pushed out. But yes, you can't guess how history moves. But if you looked at it in a sum game and as if there wasn't other variables, if Stalin could have effectively stopped the Trotskyites when they fled in the early 50s, we would be in a much better world, because it literally is Trotskyites who were thinking about political domination and control. The average American wasn't. We're powerful too, is if populist Christian conservatives, we decide to be active and decide to not infiltrate, but openly take over with our ideas. But if you go back to the Ukrainian Nazis that were left, the Trotskyites, they have a right to rule, they think. They've already had incredible success. And so they can come and program us and manipulate us because they have a taste for control. And so it's good that Westerners and Americans don't have a taste for domination and rule. That's why we're not satanic. But we have to then recognize these other groups want to do it. We have to come in and block them. And so, yeah, the ghost of Trotsky controls Barack Obama. It controls the Bushes. It controls the Republican leadership, the Mitch McConnells, the Mike Johnsons of the world. And those that don't know history are doomed to repeat it. So, I mean, I do wish that Trotsky, and he was killed obviously with a ice axe. I mean, but I do wish that his ideology had been repudiated and recognized for what it was.
Mm-hmm. Well, 1776 will rise again and defeat the Trotskyists.
Mr. Hinkle, thank you so much. Look
Alex
forward to having you
Jones,
on my show.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Congratulations on all your success. Hope that went well.
It went very well. Very educating.
They can find the forbidden information, Infowars.com/show, and follow me on X at Real Alex Jones, and I hope they will.
What's your newest book?
You know, I got a new book out called, first we made the Death Star Plan book, The Great Reset.
That's the one I was thinking.
And the War for the World. Yeah. And then my second book is about solutions mainly, and that is The Great Awakening, the plan to defeat the globalists and launch the next great renaissance. Hope people get it.
Check it out. Everyone grab it right now.
Charlie don't surf. AI don't fuck.
AI don't piss. Thank you.
Thank you.